All right, I tested it and played an old message so we can still experience Hobby's messages together for the first time. And it does capture. Changed one little thing on here. I don't know if that actually made the change, but it seems it seems to be working, which is cool. And I mean, it's right. It is kind of like Alan mentioned on one of the Facebook things, like, "Are you having fun now?" And I know we've talked about it before, and I mean I responded that basically I didn't take this horrible job to have fun, but I do enjoy and engage with the struggle of life, right? Like life is struggle, like the two are synonymous, and if you don't, you won't have any fun, and so that's why I really connect with people that like do hard things. Right, and this is one of them. And I made this term, I made this little 4 years of my life, this little crucible in my life, and I'm going to come out a different person, capable of more things. It's a cool little growth experience as far as it goes, but many not fun moments. I would particularly say, unless you're counting the struggle itself as fun, which I kind of do. And so I like, right, I like the engagement of this though. I like the engagement of it. All right, so show you my screen here, maybe. There we go. Yeah, I added one of the audio things here. See, so. All right, minus that. This is the video that's uploading, the one I just shot, right? Update on Hobby issue 3, so that'll be up first. So I looked on here to see what I named the other ones, so that I'm naming them in a similar fashion, at least, right? And then, where are we? We're here. All right, so yep, so those one of the ones I tested out.
That Ram Paul, and then
And it was working just fine. And I can't actually, yeah, I guess I have to put on the headphones. Okay, I have to put on the headphones to listen to it, but it will actually record it for you as well, which is interesting. And it was so funny that this little message that I was testing it on, he was talking about Rand Paul is going to come after me and stuff, and it's like I like Rand Paul, which is so funny, right? So ironic. Life is ironic in a very dark way, in general, And but this position seems to have more irony in it than most of life, even. So we can see, right? He hadn't messaged me in a long time. So this is from November of 22. So I mean, basically, if I just leave this issue alone, he probably leaves me alone, type of thing. But I follow up on things. I'm willing to have the discussion, which kind of puts me in the hot seat probably more than I need to be. And then the ironic thing is people accuse me of the exact opposite of the truth. A lot. I've seen a lot of people lie over life, right? And I've had people try to stab me. I've had people try to shoot me. I've been successfully poisoned and left for dead in Africa. But nothing has driven home the badness of people more than this job, just because of the consistency and all aroundness of it in both parties, both major parties and everyone else as well. So, but we can see here, so he messaged me at Friday, 9:57, so that's, yesterday. And I don't check this account. He's the only one that's messaged it in a long time, and you can see the last person to message it was Anne, his girlfriend, in 2021. So yeah, let's listen to this together. And there's a few of them. There's a few audios and videos, and a link to my own video and a few written things here. So let's just go through them and see what they say.
Jeffrey Martin's going to prison. I guarantee it. Telecommunication violation you did tonight. You watch and see if I don't get something written up on your butt.
All right, so yep, so the one thing there, like, I mean, fair enough, I don't know the exact law on the telecommunication thing. Very ironic, right? That like he's threatened me over telecommunications. Be very interesting. And I knew, right? I knew coming into the role. I mean, you're going to get attempts at blackmail, attempts at bribery, death threats, stuff like that. Like, it is politics, right? And so it's part of it. And there's a lot of crazy people and a lot of bad people. Probably, right? Probably most people. And so, right, there's a chance that really bad stuff happens when you're in office, and that's part of the burden, right? That's part of the burden that you're willingly taking on there. And so be very ironic if I get taken into court or something for being too transparent as a government official. But I really don't have a problem standing in front of a judge and saying I'm being transparent with this stuff. All right, let's see what the next one is. All right, that 6 seconds was apparently just nothing and no sound. Let's see what the next one is.
All about fighting for your freedoms and not just giving them up when somebody you think's important's telling you you're doing wrong when you know you're not, and you just give up your rights. I am so sick of hearing that.
All right, I mean, that seemed like a pretty reasonable video, right? I agree with that. Fair enough. Good one. All right, let's see what the next one is.
Talk about having a monkey on your back.
Okay, just a little metaphor, a little analogy there. Fair enough. Here's the link to the video I did on the update on the hobby issue after I had the discussion. The one woman had agreed to do the video discussion, and then she didn't want to do a video discussion. So that's the update I just done there because I said I would do one, and I try to do the things that I say I'm going to do. Let's see what the next one is.
You're going to make it easier for me. Thank you so much for doing that. You look just like an idiot talking shit. There ain't nothing you can legally do. First, second, the Bill of Rights is on my side. And if I do have booby traps on my property, it's my business, not yours. You just know you better call before you come up it.
All right, and then there's that. So I'd met him out on his own property a number of times, over those first few months in office as I was trying to work out this issue, and just kind of de-escalate things. Obviously he prefers to escalate, right? That's kind of the issue. It takes one person to escalate an issue, right? There's that old saying. It takes two people to fight, but it really doesn't, right? It takes one person to do something against another one. So, and very hard, right? To work out with someone that, just lies, and won't actually do what they say they're going to do, right? Otherwise, if he just didn't lie, this issue would have been resolved and it would have worked out for everyone. And he would have just, built some sort of little house, right? And boom, he would have, got his permits and been done with that extended time period, did a whole court amendment for that and got the board on board and passed it and all this stuff. And if you just wouldn't have lied about this stuff, it would have worked out so well. I think for everyone, which is what I was trying to do. But now it just works out bad for everyone as well, right? So he has this written part here. I just got done paying a fine, threatening somebody over telephone or a communication device, $450 in a couple nights in jail. I think that's what you ought to go spend. And then we got 1 minute and 7 seconds next year.
Yeah, I'm going to do a live on you, Jeffrey. I'm going to bring up the videos you talked about in the beginning before they elected you. I'm going to show them that you were talking about getting rid of the corruption in Dalton Township. Well, all you've done is picked up where Tony Barnes left off. And, Dennis Lambert, Ricky Hobby, Eric Van whatever, and Lacey, we're all going to put you in jail. And then we're going to set Dalton Township back to Walkerville codes and stuff because it's unconstitutional to tell somebody what to do on their land, especially when you got a neighbor burying garbage on other people's lands and you ain't doing nothing about it. You just watch out, Bubba. The cops are coming for you too. It's just a matter of time. We find the right ones that ain't corrupt, like the ones surround you and Keith Covington.
I mean, so it's so interesting, right? So, and I wrote articles and ran on the idea of trying to get corruption out and doing reforms, right? And so we've changed dozens of ordinances, right, the local laws here at the township, and it's very interesting that the people that were the most adamant about strong freedom, for the most part, won't come to meetings, won't be on the planning commission or the zoning board of appeals, won't actually do the stuff. Some of them will, but it's a very small amount, right? And so they don't seem to actually want to change the laws, which is very, very interesting, right? It adds to the idea of this general badness of humans, right? And it's just in different ways, right? Like different versions of bad. And so you largely get, and this is, if Al's willing to sit down with me, this is largely going to be my perspective. So like, all right, so let's say we agree that the laws are bad. What do we do? Right? So if I get to just ignore the laws, then that means the laws are just at my whim, right? They're arbitrary. I get to decide which way we go with laws. Do I want to enforce them today, not enforce them today, completely at my discretion? I disagree with that. I think that's a very bad plan and a very bad take on reform of laws, because you're basically negating the rule of law to begin with as your basic premise. And it's not going to go well, especially over the long term, right? And so, and then another version of that is to basically just ignore the laws, right? Say there aren't laws. This idea of like an anarchism type of thing. And I think in reality, to a certain extent, that state always exists, right? Because people aren't free. You're just free to do anything that you can do. And then there's consequences, right? The good consequences, the bad consequences, the consequences you want, the consequences you don't want, whatever, right? So, but you're able to just do the stuff and then live with those consequences. And so I don't think those directions are great for a political reform movement, which is why I think none of these people will take office and do anything with it. And even, I mean, some of the people that run for office, they don't seem like they actually try to win the election. They just throw their hat in the ring to say that they tried, but they don't really want to get in there and actually tackle the messiness of the job, because it's extremely distasteful, And I mean, it is. It's horrible. It's extremely distasteful. And from my perspective, at least, I guess maybe some people like it, right? But those are probably politicians I disagree with on like basic philosophical stuff. And so what you should do is you start where the laws are, and there's a long development, right? Like all of human history. And then zoning laws in particular, and local ordinances and that type of stuff, you have a large amount of development over the last 100 years, right? Over the last century. Really a key point is the Village of Euclid versus Ambler Realty Company Supreme Court case in 1926, and we can go into more details on that, which was an overturning of a circuit court ruling. And I would agree more with the circuit court ruling, and I think there was some shady stuff behind the scenes there. But still, right? So it's been almost 100 years, developed for a century, and then you want someone to just come in and be like, all right, let's just ignore the laws and not try to change them and reform them and follow the process that's put in place for changing and reforming them, which is my perspective, right? So, all right, if stuff is in a bad way, if stuff is in a bad direction, then use the process, right, that is in place, which means new people can take office, new laws can come into existence, right? So you go through the process and you reform things. That's political reform. No one seems to care to do that or want to do that, especially the people on the side of so-called freedom, or they say there are. I think in reality, there might be no one really there, right? There's like just different types of authoritarian. There's authoritarian left, authoritarian right, and then the libertarians that aren't willing to do anything real. And I'm like trying to take this practical approach, right? All right, so if you have these libertarian ideals, how do you get in and take practical reforms and get things moving in a good direction, and then hopefully the momentum will carry them in that direction even after I leave office? And I'm not sure when we look back that we're going to be able to call my attempt at this, my trial, my experiment here successful, right? But then you have all these other people that just aren't trying, and so super interesting. All right, let's see the next chicken video.
All about fighting for your freedoms and not just giving them up when somebody you think's important's telling you you're doing wrong when you know you're not, and you just give up your rights. I am so sick of hearing that.
All right. So, and he's pointing out a problem that we have in our society, and that we've had in society for a long time, in a problem that's actually in human nature, right? And a very difficult problem to address, because it's like if you just have everyone doing anything they want, with no laws at all, then the strong survive, right? Then the biggest gang leader, the one that can organize the biggest gang or the biggest mafia, they win. Right? And I mean, society largely is like that. And so, super unfortunate. Essentially, the development of civilization, or what we consider a civilized living, is a movement away from that. And so, there's a process in place, there's a set of codes and laws in place, and then these processes to change those, to adjust for public opinion, and hopefully to codify individual rights, so that everyone just doesn't have to defend them completely on an individual basis. But to get together as a group, you're obviously giving up some of that individuality as well. And so trying to navigate our way through that as we've grown into billions of people around the planet in these huge mega societies, right? I mean, we're tribal animals, right? We're tribal creatures, and we don't live anything like that at all anymore, right? We're a highly domesticated animal, self-domesticated. And so that is, I mean, it's a real issue, and I don't think humans know how to deal with it. I don't think anyone has a good answer. Jeffrey Martin, you ain't nobody, and you reigned under false pretenses. Right? This is a lie, but it's coming from his crazy perspective. So I don't think he thinks he's lying. I think he's just crazy. Right? Your day is coming. Which is this? Right? This is like this type of veiled threat of something bad is going to happen to me. And he was talking about going to prison and all of this type of stuff. And coming in office, I knew things would be hot, and I knew people would come after me and whatnot, no matter what I did, right? So if I just said, like, hey, right now, shooting this video, I'm wearing flip-flops, like, some people are just going to attack me, right? And, like, want to do bad things to me because they're like, oh, you wear flip-flops. That's horrible. That's just human nature. People are nuts. And so, like, you're going to get that. And then when you get into, these serious issues and these intense issues, people are really, really going to try to get you. And so you have to expect. Right, like, I don't know, no one can know all the laws. It's a major problem in our society. We have so many laws that no one can know them, and they fluctuate, they vacillate so much that no one can keep up with it, right? And James Madison wrote about that, right, in the Federalist Papers, Federalist 51. If the laws are so extensive and the laws are so changing that you can't know them and you can't keep up with them, then you really can't have rule of law. And it's a major issue in our society, and it actually causes a huge issue in attempting to do political reform, because it's like, all right, well, I think some of the laws are wrong, so I want to change them, which means the laws are changing. And so you have to try to pursue that at some sort of like reasonable pace, that's not too disorienting for the society as well, which I've tried to find that balance, right? And so I don't know if anyone agrees with me. If I found that balance, I don't even know if I agree that I found that balance. Right? It kind of seems like a futile endeavor. The more I know about human nature, the more it certainly does seem like a futile endeavor. But nevertheless, serious, right? So, he's kind of nuts. But in some of these videos, like he's pointing out, serious issues with human nature and the structure of society and that type of thing as well. 52 seconds on the next one here, so we'll listen to that.
I'm sorry there's more than one person down here now. You're going to have your hands full here shortly. Me and Dennis is making some plans. Yeah, Mr. Covington's got it right on video, threatening with a gun on public right-of-way. Keith, and the cop was right there when he said he was protecting his land. He was right there when he was told the cop that he did threaten he did threaten a gun. So, and you know what the cop told Dennis? He goes, we need to get along with Keith Covington. So I'm guessing that cop is going to be fired. Keith's probably going to go to Dale and get his gun stripped away, because he did threaten Dennis, and he's got it on video. It's going to be beautiful. I'm going to start showing that here shortly.
All right, and so I don't know of all these incidents, and that's kind of the interesting thing, right? Like, in the one instance, like Amy was saying, to update her. And so, I mean, it seems like she's more on the leading edge, and the updates could come the other way on that, since I usually know second hand or third hand or whatever it happens to be on these types of issues. And so, and I don't know these other people that he's talking about, right? Dale, Dennis, he named some other names in one of the other voice recordings. I don't know who they are. I haven't interacted with them. So I've only interacted with Hobby and his girlfriend Ann out there. You know, I haven't even interacted with Hobby's sister. And so, not even sure what her name is. So these other people, I don't know what that is. I don't know what their plans are, right? It's just kind of a vague thing. So the next thing we have here, Keith is obviously, right? I've interacted with him. But some of these other names, I don't know who they are. Next, and if I was you, I would go to the Walkerville City Hall and talk to the head clerk there and figure out how come they kept to the Constitution in Walkerville, because that's what you're going back to. Your paycheck's going to be cut in half. So, I mean, I don't know what he's trying to say. I don't know what he's trying to say. So very interesting. And I mean, I'll tell you what I'll do. Like, I'll follow up on it, right? It's like stupid and pointless and a waste of time, most likely, to follow up on this. Like probably most of the things that I get suggested to follow up on, and yet I do follow up on them. And so I'll, I'll probably email the Walkerville City clerk and see like, hey, I got this message from a citizen. No idea what it refers to, like paychecks getting cut in half, because that's what you're going back to. Your paychecks going to be cut in half, right? Like that. I mean, it's a weird statement. Seems extremely unlikely. Don't know how that would happen. Right? And so, I mean, in like this, right? So this is a campaign page for a political campaign that I ran a few years ago, obviously. No one else messages me here except for Hobby. And so, I feel like it's reasonable if you're messaging me about political stuff. And, we have, all of the stuff. He posts his videos publicly and whatnot. Then, seems reasonable to have it as a public thing. And I have no moral qualms about Ricky Hobby, because at a certain point of lying and threatening me, my moral obligation to somebody certainly goes down too. So no issues there. Obviously, completely willing to debate any of that stuff, have the conversation with anyone. I think it would be good, right? If people want to kind of engage, this is kind of the issue. They want to make an issue. Let's see, was there anything else I wanted to show on here? That's what this page is, right? I don't think so. So I think we can just switch back to me. There we go. All right. So yeah, I had to listen to it through the headphones. But when I ran my test, it picked up the audio coming through there well, and so hopefully it did on this one. Otherwise, it was a lot of wasted time on my part, right? I will shoot it again if I need to. But yeah, I mean, so right, we're kind of seeing the stuff unfold live, and so for me, it's just like. We're approaching 3 years of this for me at this point, right? But it's very similar, and it's just recurring stuff. And so there's one issue, there's a bunch of other issues, and people do get a hold of me fairly often, give calls or emails or stuff about different things, about zoning or building, different ordinances, different things they want to see addressed. A lot of stuff about roads, right? Even though we don't have a Department of Public Works where we take care of our own roads, we work with and contract with the Road Commission, the County Road Commission on that. Tons of people contact me about roads. I try to follow up and get all that stuff done. I've surprised some people. Surprised a guy a couple of days ago because he called, and I was like, all right, I'll reach out to the Road Commission. Then I showed up at his house, and I was like, hey, I want to see if we can get this thing taken care of at the end of his driveway. And we did. Right, made a call, and they got it taken care of while we were talking there about other political stuff. People do contact me, but we see that there's much more activity, like much more engagement through, the social media and this type of stuff, and then I think people consuming these types of things, right? They want to be updated, but they don't necessarily want to say a piece on it. And then the people that want to say something on it, they just want to write like a comment on Facebook. They really don't want to have a conversation with someone, something like that. And if they do want to have a conversation, they want to have like a closed door, like kind of secretive conversation because they don't want to be put out there publicly. And I get all of those, right? But I mean, the engagement, the overall societal communal engagement is important and has largely been lost over the last couple of generations, especially, right, since the invention of and growth of the internet, and then especially social media and that type of thing. And I think we're going to see a much stronger wave of that, actually, next, because we're going to have AI. And I think AI is going to drive people absolutely insane, right? They're going to have artificial friends. Like, the kids are going to have friends that actually talk back. They don't have to imagine, and they are imaginary, right? It's like real imaginary friends. I think it's going to drive people completely nuts. Or more nuts. And, very interesting. But I find it interesting. I thought it was kind of a good opportunity, right? That be prepared to appreciate what you meet, right? That type of philosophy. Mixed with choose your heart, and so I think it's kind of this opportunity for people to kind of see the behind the scenes, some of how it works and what goes on, and hopefully engage with it and that type of thing as well. So anyways, feel free to reach out. Obviously, my direct line here at the office is area code 231-332-6700, or email supervisor@daltontownship.org. Otherwise, this is Jeff Martin signing off until next thing. Like, if you're liking these updates and the details of these updates, let me know. Obviously, don't get a ton of positive feedback. I think I probably get more positive feedback than most politicians. And not sure exactly why that is. Just have done maybe a decent amount of stuff that people agree with, or people like the addressing of the problems, right? Because that's a different philosophical take too. So I'm shooting a video on this, like problems, like serious problems, major issues, major conflicts, right? In people and in the society and in the community. I don't think it's unreasonable. I think it's a logical approach, right? That a lot of other politicians, if you just ignore this, right? If you're not in office, you obviously use this, you attack this, have you, right? Because you're trying to drive division, cause upset. But if you're in office, you just kind of shut this down and you ignore this and you try to keep it quiet, and then you shoot a video about the new welcome sign having gone in, right? It was this long process. They had to order cedar and couldn't get it in from one of the coasts, and eventually got it in, and the welcome sign in Twin Lake is looking good now. The rocks are going to be fixed, around it this next week, but it came out well, and I was hesitant about it, about spending the money on it, and if it was going to come out well and that type of thing, and it does. And so you could kind of attempt to shut down this conversation about the problem, and then be like, oh, look at this pretty thing over here, right? Look at this good thing. And that's that. And then, hand out food boxes, right? We've seen that. That's that classic pnem et circenses, right? Bread and circuses. Keep people comfortable and distracted. And I think it's a very bad approach for the society. I think the society is going to keep going down that route, right? I don't think I'm going to stop that, But I also don't want to be part of that. And so I think a much better approach is to be here's a problem. Here are some problems. Let's talk about, let's discuss, right? Let's have the conversation over the problems. And if we disagree, let's have the disagreeing conversation, right? And let's open it up and let people debate it, right? And then go debate it with your friends, debate it with your neighbors, debate it, right? At a cookout or a camp out or a breakfast at a restaurant or whatever it may be. And let the discussion occur, right? And so this view is largely, it's a view where you have strong faith and hope in humanity. And I'm losing that, right? I'm largely losing that over this term in this role. And so I wouldn't say I particularly have that, right? Not for general humanity especially. But certainly coming into the role, right? I had that faith and hope in humanity. And hoping to engender, I don't know about love, but at least some peacemaking and some tolerance. But it doesn't seem to be there. And so, I'm still operating, right? I'm still operating in that way, I have faith in hope for humanity. And it would be great if I was surprised and it was there. Nevertheless, philosophically, I still support having the discussion, right? Have the debate. It's an American virtue. It's an American foundation. It's an American character trait, right? It's, just a philosophical base for our society, and people on both sides and all over the place. They just don't. They largely don't want to do it. Which also makes me think that, and I heard this. heard this by a guy I really like on some leadership training stuff and whatnot. And our society just isn't bad enough for people to want to change. It's very comfortable, right? Like, I mean, everyone, it's very easy to eat, right? It's very easy to have a working cell phone. And so our society is just, it is really comfortable, right? That in that panem et circenses, that bread and circuses, especially played at the high level. To cause and play off of and reinforce the news cycle is still working, and I don't know how you break that up. So I think it'll probably be a downslide for quite a long time here, with significant things happening over the next year and a half or so. Nevertheless. So, I mean, hopefully this is right. This is like a positive part of that, of having the debate, having the open discussion, having the disagreements, and talking about reform movements and this type of stuff. Can you imagine, right, if all of the people that are just like doing the Facebook comments and stuff like this, and Hobby with like his crazy ideas and whatnot, and instead of like lying and threatening, right, he was like, you know what, and this is what I talked to him about early, is like, why don't we make you into a case for part of the reforms, right? Like, why don't we do that? Why don't we give you this time extension, do this court amendment, right? It's a bunch of work, right? It's this huge hassle. You have to get people on board. It's a very it's an odd thing to do, right? Some people call it a sketchy thing to do, but like, I did it all by the book, right? Did it all legally, got the court amendment officially. And then at the end, if you've built your place, just be like, look, right? Like, it worked out. Like, the guy wasn't nuts. He really just wanted the government to back off to give him an opportunity to build his thing. And instead, right, what we have is an example of why we shouldn't do those reforms, because the guy is nuts, right? And that's the case that I made to him. Like, let's make this into a positive, good thing of why there should be more freedom and why people are just trying to do reasonable things to live on their own land. And instead, like, people won't work with me, right? It's like they don't want to do the reasonable thing. They don't want to reform the laws. They want to cause a problem, right? That's why the police think that Hobby, and I think this too, I've interacted with him a lot, he wants to do like that, the suicide by government thing, right? He wants the problem. Otherwise, why would you lie, threaten? People offer you help and you reject it and all this type of stuff. Like, why would you do that? Unless you're trying to like escalate the problem. And it's like, it was such a good opportunity, right? It was such a good opportunity to show how positive reforms could move in the direction of freedom. And instead, by being nuts and not doing what he said he was going to do, even though I created these special loopholes for him to jump through and extended this time frame so everything could work out well and peacefully and everyone be on board. And I wanted to be just like, I told you so. Like, I told you so, that people just want to live their lives and do a reasonable thing, and they're willing to negotiate, and we just need to ease up, right, some of these barriers and some of these restraints and that type of thing. And then instead we have nutcases just lying and threatening. And so it's a very... it's a disheartening thing, right? It's like, how do you have positive reform movements if the people if you want to go in the direction of freedom, right, which is the direction I want to go, if the people just end up being nuts and won't do what they say that they're going to do and don't want to actually work within the legal framework, right? They're just like, I'm outside of the laws. Well, then... it doesn't work, right? I mean, you're just negating the existence of our society and our nation and our culture and our history. You're just negating it, is what you're doing. And they refer back to things like the Bill of Rights and whatnot. And it's like, they don't know, right, that the Bill of Rights applied to the federal government as restrictions on the federal government. They're amendments because they weren't originally part of the Constitution. Like, the Founding Fathers heavily debated these things. Many of the most important Founding Fathers didn't sign the Constitution. Some of them because they objected, because it was consolidating power at the time from the Articles of Confederation. And they didn't like the fact that there wasn't a Bill of Rights, right? But then that limited the federal government, right? That was what it was for. The states had much more restrictive rights because they were more localized. And so that really was the setup. And it wasn't until the 14th Amendment, right? It wasn't until the 14th Amendment after the Civil War, right? So I mean, you're talking like a century later, right? Just under a century later, that you're actually having what's called incorporation, and the Bill of Rights is applying to state governments and lower governments, lower than the federal government. And it's like that's very important history. That's very important history on how that developed and how that goes and why it works like that, right? And that's just it's ignored because people like the slogans, right? I mean, both sides, right? The one side is just like freedom, and then they're like, but lockdowns and vaccine mandates for everyone. That would be good. And the other side is like free college for all and lockdowns and vaccine mandates, right? I mean, it's like no one seems to actually be for the freedom stuff. And then the people that seem legitimately for the freedom stuff, they don't actually want to do the reform stuff, right? They don't actually want to work with the system and in the system to try to change the system to be better. They just want to check out of the system and like have a fight. And so it's like no one's actually working to reform the system in a positive way. And I mean, there's a few people, right? Now, I mean, he actually mentioned Rand Paul in there, and Rand Paul seems really solid and like he's been working for positive stuff and making very little impact. Right? I mean, he runs commentary, right? He's a commentator that holds a position, but I mean, highly respect him for holding the position, right? And like, I mean, working, right? Like actually working on it, even if it does have very little effect. So I feel I feel somewhat similar, just at a much smaller level, obviously. So, anyways, Jeff Martin signing off until next time.